The NFL draft is officially 1 month away from today, so it's time to do another mock draft to see what teams can do in the first round of the draft, especially after another week of free agency. But also at this point, we can really start discussing who is looking to trade up, who's looking to trade down, which prospects are looking to rise and climb up the draft board, and which prospects are slowly but surely falling down draft boards. With that, we'll just get right on into it. Caleb Williams is the number one pick. We all know this. We do not need to elaborate more on this. Washington then at pick number 2, and this is really where the draft starts. It's between Drake May and Jaden Daniels after Dan Quinn came out and said it is a pretty sure thing that they will be going quarterback at pick 2. And I think Drake May makes a ton of sense, but I also think Jaden Daniels makes a ton of sense for Washington. If you look at Cliff Kingsbury's track record when it comes to offenses that he runs and quarterbacks that he had Patrick Mahomes all the way back in Texas Tech. He had Kyler Murray in Arizona. And then when he was a senior offensive analyst at USC this past season, he had Caleb Williams. And all three of those guys have some sneaky kind of athleticism to play outside of the structure of a play and to go off schedule. And that does not mean that Drake May can't do that, but I think Jaden Daniels does that just a little bit better than Drake May does. And that's why Washington could be very intrigued with Jaden Daniels over Drake May. So that means that New England at number 3. This is going to be a trade. We are just testing this out. This does not mean it's a sure thing, but this is a trade back with the Minnesota Vikings, who recently acquired the number 23 pick from the Houston Texans. And as you can see, I'm building out this trade here. It is 3 first-round picks going to New England and only pick 3 and a future 4th going back to Minnesota. I think this makes a ton of sense for Minnesota to go up and get one of their guys. And it seems like one of their guys is Drake May. Could also be JJ McCarthy, but I think in this scenario, they have the opportunity to go get a Drake May, and they do so. And for New England, this makes sense. It doesn't feel right to say, wow, we're trading back from a top 3 pick when we have a need at quarterback. But this roster needs help elsewhere. And I think with the capital that they can get, you get 2 first-round picks this year. You're getting 2 first-round picks next year. So you can bring in a guy, like a Spencer Rattler in 3rd round maybe, or a Michael Pratt in the 4th round, someone like that you don't invest a ton of, money and resources into that may not pan out because your roster really isn't that ready for a rookie quarterback. So trading with Minnesota, you're getting capital, and you will see eventually in pick 11 and pick 23 who they take and why it helps build out the roster and why it actually makes more sense than to really stick and pick at number 3, in my opinion. So Minnesota comes up to number 3 to take Drake May. That is really the only time that you will see Minnesota trade up to number 3, at least. And the capital that they give up to do so is for a guy like Drake May. It doesn't really make sense if you're going to, trade all that capital and just take JJ McCarthy at number 3 when there is a real chance really that he could get to number 11 if the Giants are really the team that you have to get ahead of. But what if they don't take JJ McCarthy? Then you're looking at Tennessee, Atlanta, Chicago, and the Jets. They're not really going to take a quarterback like JJ McCarthy. So Minnesota comes up to number 3 to take Drake May. That means we have 3 quarterbacks right off the board. And pick number 4, outside of Caleb to Chicago, this is probably the other, the most chalk pick as well. This is Marvin Harrison. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. They need a wide receiver. They're getting the best wide receiver in this draft class, and one of the best, prospects that we've seen in a long time from this wide receiver class. I know we just had Jamar Chase and all that kind of stuff, but Marvin Harrison is special. Okay, there's no other way about it. There's no 2 ways about it. Marvin Harrison is special. Chargers here at 5. This is a trade back spot for the Chargers, and luckily they find a trade partner in the New York Jets. And I think a lot of people will say, what? They just signed Mike Williams to a 1-year deal. And I think Mike Williams, coming off of another serious injury, may not be as effective as most people think he could be. So with, the year or 2 that you have left with Rodgers, why not just go all out and give him everything that he needs? You did what you did with the offensive line. You signed Tyron Smith, you traded for Morgan Moses, so you got your tackle set. Then you went out and signed John Simpson as well for a guard. So you've got 3 new pieces on the offensive line, Elijah Vera Tucker and Joe Timmon. Your offensive line is set, right? So go get another weapon for him. So it's not just Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall. Because let's be honest, Alan Lazard is not cutting it for this Jets team. So the Jets are going to trade up to number 5. You got Mike Williams. Yes, Mike Williams can play on the outside. Then you've got Garrett Wilson and then Malik Neighbors, who can really play inside and outside. And really, after Rodgers leaves, this is the other big thing. You then have a great supporting cast for whoever the next quarterback is, with Garrett Wilson, with Breece Hall, with a good offensive line, and with Malik Neighbors. I think it makes a lot of sense for the Jets to just go all out in the draft to go get one of these top 3 wide receivers. And I think in this scenario, they can go up and get a guy like Malik Neighbors, where it only costs them the first-round pick swap this year, a future second, and a 4th. That's all that it would take, right? So Malik Neighbors to the Jets at 5. Giants here at 6. This is the JJ McCarthy spot. I think this is a very underrated, or I guess I shouldn't say underrated, because I think a lot of people expect the Giants to be in on quarterbacks this year. But I think JJ McCarthy makes the most sense for the Giants out of all the other quarterbacks, because you do have Daniel Jones still, and I know he's not great, but you still have Daniel Jones, and Brian Daboll has come out and said that he is the guy when he's back and healthy. Daniel Jones, you just signed Drew Lock to a 1-year deal. So getting a Drake May, a Jaden Daniels, a Caleb Williams just kind of muddies up the quarterback room a little bit. Like, you have all that money invested to the quarterback when you could really play one of those 3 guys right away. Getting a guy like JJ McCarthy, you have no pressure to put him in right away. You can let him sit for the entire year pretty much. And then after this year, you have an out in Daniel Jones's contract, so you can let him go. And then you let Drew Lock walk again in free agency because he's on a 1-year deal. And then JJ McCarthy is then your quarterback of the future. So I think it's really, if it's not JJ McCarthy for the Giants, it is really going to be Rome Odunze. I feel like it's wide receiver. You could look O-line. I think the Giants are pretty comfortable with their offensive line and where it stands at the moment. There really is no corner worth taking here at number 6. There's no defensive interior or defensive tackle really worth taking here either. You did just trade for Brian Burns, so your edge rushers are really set, right? You have Kayvon Thibodeau. So JJ McCarthy or Rome Odunze, they could go either or, and in this scenario, they go with JJ McCarthy. Titans here at 7. This was a very popular wide receiver spot for a lot of people before they went out and signed Calvin Ridley to a massive contract in free agency. So with that, they're going to build up the offensive line. Joe Alt, who is a blue chip prospect. I think this is really a dream scenario for Tennessee, where they get the top tackle prospect in this draft, where they have a huge need still for their offensive line. So Joe Alt to Tennessee, ton of sense. Don't really need to dive deeper into it because it's really a match made in heaven, to be honest. Atlanta here at 8. After signing Kirk Cousins, they really do not need to fill out the rest of the offense. I mean, they went out and signed Darnell Mooney. They traded for Rondale Moore. So your 3 wide receivers, Drake London, Darnell Mooney, and Rondale Moore. You have Bijan Robinson, and you have Kyle Pitts with their offensive line. That offense is set. So they're going to look defense, and Dallas Turner is the one that makes the most sense there at 8. Getting a high floor, high ceiling pass rusher, that is exactly Dallas Turner, and that is what they need. They've lacked that kind of edge presence for a while now. I think that makes a ton of sense. You can make the argument for Jared Verse. You can make the argument for maybe even Quinyon Mitchell if you have been that impressed with his pre-draft process. But personally, I think it is Dallas Turner, and there's, little debate, over, with anyone else over Dallas Turner. Chicago here at 9, and we're going to go Rome Odunze. And I think a lot of people will also say, like, whoa, they just traded for Keenan Allen. Yes, they did. But Keenan Allen is 32 and going into the last year of his current deal. Now, could they re-sign Keenan Allen to another year or two. I think they could, but it's a risky investment for a wide receiver that is getting up there in age as Keenan Allen is. So getting a guy like Roma Dunze, gives Caleb Williams the one of the best supporting casts in the entire league for his first year or two. You got DJ Moore, you have Keenan Allen, you have Roma Dunze, you have Cole Kmet, and you have DeAndre Swift, who they signed in free agency. Caleb Williams really has everything set for him in that offense. So Roma Dunze is there. And again, yes, Keenan Allen, they just traded for him, but I don't think trading for Keenan Allen exactly takes him out of the wide receiver sweepstakes because of his age and contract situation. Chargers here at 10 after trading back with the Jets. This is Talize Fuaga from Oregon State, and this is purely just because Harbaugh wants to run the ball. That's really what it comes down to. That's what he wants his offense to be. So you can put Fuaga at guard right away, and then once you're done with Trey Pipkins, who is their current right tackle, you can move Fuaga then right to that right tackle spot. And again, it's a perfect Harbaugh match. Just an absolute, mauler in the run game. That's what Harbaugh wants to do, is to run the ball well and play good defense. I think that pairing makes a ton of sense as well. New England here at 11 after trading back with Minnesota. They have one open spot. I shouldn't say open spot, but one spot on the offensive line that is very suspect at the moment. It's their left tackle spot. So getting a guy like Olu Fashanu completes their offensive line. It really, really does. So you have Olu Fashanu at left tackle, Cole Strange at left guard. You have David Andrews at center, Sidi Sow at right guard, and then you just re-signed Mike Onwenu. I think that's how you say his name. Apologize if I didn't, but that offensive line is now set for whoever the next quarterback is, they will be well protected, and they still have pick 23. So if you're sitting there going, well, they don't have anyone to throw to, just wait. Just wait. Pick 12 here for Denver. I think this is also a prime trade back spot for Denver. As you can see here on the PFF mock draft simulator, they only have 2 picks in the top 100. They have one in the first and one in the third. They don't have a second, and then they pick 121 in the fourth. That's not ideal. And luckily, the Philadelphia Eagles ring them up and say, hey, you know what? We want to come up. We'll give you draft capital as well. This may look like an overpay. The draft pick value charts would say it's pretty similar or pretty even. Pick 22, second round pick 53, and a future third round pick to Denver gets this deal done. And I think if you're Denver, if you get that kind of trade package, scoop it up, eat it up right away. Like that is a dream trade back scenario where you're getting capital, but you still keep a first round pick where your options are really open still too. So Philly goes all the way up to number 12 to go get the CB1 in this class, Quinyon Mitchell. James Bradbury is out. They cut Avonte Maddox. Darius Slay isn't getting any younger either. I think Howie Roseman can get real aggressive and go get it could be whatever corner he thinks is the cornerback one. It could be Terrion Arnold for all we know. But I think it is going to be Quinyon Mitchell that is the cornerback one. Dude has just been killing the pre-draft process, and his film is so good. So Denver trades all the way back to 22, but they get adequate capital to do so. Philly goes up to number 12, gets the CB1 to help out their defense. Vegas here at 13. This is Troy Fautanu. I think what's his name? Jermaine Illuminor. I think that's how you say his name. Signed with the Giants in free agency, so they have a void at their right tackle spot. Troy Fautanu did play on the left side in college. I think he's athletic enough, mobile enough to make the transition over to the right side and be very, very valuable for them. Dude is a fluid mover. He is hard to beat. against the pass rush. And that is exactly, I think the other part of this too, I should say, the Raiders are building an identity. And Fautanu fits that identity like to a T. So Troy Fautanu at 13 to the Raiders, Saints here at 14. This one could go a litany of ways, I'll say. They could look offensive tackle, and if we take a look at the available offensive tackles, you're looking really for a left tackle, not a right tackle. Like Ryan Ramczyk does have some injury issues, and his future is kind of uncertain. So you could go Amarius Mims or JC Latham. But I think the bigger need is on the left side, and neither of those guys are left tackles, so it doesn't really feel like a good tackle spot. You could go wide receiver like a Brian Thomas. I don't think that's really in play for them at this point. I think they could go second round, third round. That's the wide receiver that they go with. Quarterback isn't really a need for them. Derek Carr still has a massive amount of money left on his contract, so it'd be hard to move off of him. So that leaves defensive line, and I think it's really pass rush. Jared Verse is still sitting there. Jared Verse makes a ton of sense. I've mocked that one before. Put him opposite Cam Jordan, and then once Cam Jordan is retired or gone or whatever it is, Jared Verse is then your cornerstone pass rusher for the future. So I think Jared Verse, and really even, you could make the argument for Leatu Latu, who, look, I'm a huge fan of Leatu Latu. Either one of those guys make a ton of sense for the Saints there at 14. Colts at 15. This is Brock Bowers. He's Swiss Army knife, maybe is the best way to say it. He's an offensive weapon that Shane Steichen would very much enjoy having in his offense. So your offense now, you brought back Michael Pittman. You re-signed, I should say, Brock Bowers. You then have Alec Pierce and Josh Downs. You have Jonathan Taylor in your backfield and Anthony Richardson with his offensive line. Brock Bowers pretty much completes the Colts offense, and I don't think Indy would think twice about it. Seattle here at 16, and I'm not going to lie. I tried to not make this pick happen because I'm like, it makes too much sense. I kind of want to experiment a little bit, but I kept coming back to the fact that it is just too good to pass up. The value too good to pass up. The need too good to pass up. Jackson Powers Johnson to Seattle at 16. Can play guard or play center. And if you know anything about Seattle, they do have their tackles relatively set. I mean, Abraham Lucas is coming off an injury this upcoming season. And then you had Charles Cross on the left side. And they weren't exactly the issue. It was really the interior. So getting a guy like Jackson Powers Johnson, you can plug and play right away. And we are now seeing the value of good interior offensive linemen. If you paid attention at all to where the money was going in free agency, you saw Robert Hunt sign a $100 million deal with the Carolina Panthers. You saw Jonah Jackson sign a $51 million deal with the Rams. The money is going to the interior of the offensive line. So that is just a building piece. That is a identity pick really for Seattle. When you have a guy like Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet in your backfield, you're okay and content running the ball because you've got good offensive linemen in front of them. Jacksonville here at 17. This is a defensive tackle pick. And I know they just went out and signed Eric Armstead from the Niners after he was released. But Byron Murphy needs to be at the top of their draft board. Their starting defensive line, Eric Armstead, who I just said, Roy Robertson Harris, and Devon Hamilton. Yeah, you should go get Byron Murphy. Like, you really should. And I try not to be, offensive. And look, I'm no athlete. I'm not in the NFL, so I can't really make fun of those guys or anything like that. But like, getting a guy like Byron Murphy instantly makes that defensive line more formidable, more, it makes it better. I think that's really what it comes down to. You are improving an area of your team that needs some improvement. So Byron Murphy to Jacksonville at 17. And if I'm not mistaken, I had that in my last mock draft. That's one I'm probably going to have a tough time getting off of because I'm like, it just makes too much sense in my mind. Cincinnati here at 18. This is a tackle. I think a lot of people could go, oh, Johnny Newton makes a lot of sense. Um, I think they are big fans of Amarius Mims. Big athletic tackle, kind of similar to Orlando Brown. Um, and they did just go out and sign Trent Brown from New England. So maybe you don't need to play Amarius Mims right away, but Amarius Mims, when he's going, if you can fully develop him to his potential, he might be one of the top offensive linemen in this draft class. And that's saying a lot when you have the likes of Olu Fashanu and Joe Alt and Talize Fuaga and Troy Fatanu, and even some of the interior offensive linemen like Graham Barton, Jackson Powers Johnson, Zach Frazier. Amarius Mims can be up there as one of the best offensive linemen if you can develop him. And I think Cincinnati very well could develop him into really a franchise right tackle. Rams here at 19. Somehow, some way, they always get the good players. Honestly, we're going to go Leatu Latu, getting them a dominant edge rusher. Now that Aaron Donald is now retired, Kobe Turner did have a very, very good season last year, but you need some more firepower when you're going after the quarterback in Latu, who is the most developed and polished edge rusher in this class. Just fits the need, and it's a value, to be honest. I mean, pick 19 is honestly too late for Leatu Latu, but someone's going to fall in this draft because of all the other players that are going to go before him, just with the teams picking up there as well. So Leatu Latu, that one I've mocked several times. That one's also going to be one that's going to be hard for me to change up because I'm just like, it's a perfect pairing. It is a perfect pairing. Pittsburgh here at 20. This is going to be Terrion Arnold, and there was a lot of different ways that I could go about that Pittsburgh pick. Wide receiver kind of makes some sense. They did trade Deontay Johnson, so it's George Pickens. That's really about it. They could have gone tackle as well, but again, there's really no left tackles. So I came back to Terrion Arnold and I said, okay, you have Dante Jackson, who you just traded for from Carolina, and you have Joey Porter. You have one more year of Dante Jackson, so you could bring him back, or or he's really your nickel guy this year, your slot corner this year. Terrion Arnold could also play a little bit of slot if you wanted him to. But then once Dante Jackson, let's say you let him walk after this year, your secondary is then set for the future with Joey Porter Jr. and Terrion Arnold. I think that's really a home run pick for Pittsburgh. They could look offensive line still, but Arnold at 20 is a really, really, really good value, who I think a lot of people will argue as well. He's their cornerback one, and I completely get it. And again, in this scenario, he falls down to 20, and I think Pittsburgh gets away with one of the best values in the draft at this point. Miami at pick 21. This is a luxury pick. Brian Thomas out of LSU. I just want to read you his combine measurements. Came in at 6'3", 210 pounds. 89th percentile wingspan. 88th percentile 10-yard split, which was 1.5, I believe. That's really fast. And that shows good acceleration, good burst. He finished with a 4.33 40-yard dash, 94th percentile of all wide receivers, and an 82nd percentile vertical jump as well. This is the size and speed that Mike McDaniel could really, really cherish in this Miami offense, especially when Tyreek Hill retires in the next year or two, maybe 3, if he pushes back that timeline. Miami wants to be fast. They want speedy guys on the outside. You could make the argument that Xavier Worthy makes a ton of sense. I just think Worthy's a little too similar to Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill just based on size. You need to get a guy who can, win downfield, but then also high point the ball, really kind of be a safety valve for Tua, so he's not constantly trying to make timing throws and all that kind of stuff. So Brian Thomas at 21 makes a ton of sense for Miami, and there's a lot of steam. I've noticed that Brian Thomas could go earlier than this, like a lot earlier than people realize. And to be completely honest, I would understand it because, again, this dude is a freak in nature, and he's showed some promise in route running and separating and all that kind of stuff. He'll just need to put in some reps, put in some practice, and just with NFL coaching, I believe that he can be a perennial outside threat. Denver here at 22 after training back with Philly. This is where they get the quarterback. Bo Nix. I think taking Bo Nix at 12 doesn't make a lot of sense. I think that's a bit of a reach, and I think it's kind of in the same vein as Christian Ponder, as the Minnesota Vikings did all those years ago, where they should have waited, but they saw that they had a need and then just, needed to get the guy before it was too late. Training back to 2020, or excuse me, training back to 22 removes that aspect out of it because you're picking up a second round pick and a future third while still getting a quarterback in the first round. That makes a ton of sense for Denver. So, in hindsight, we look at this trade between Philly and Denver. It's a win-win for both teams. Again, Philly gets their corner, Denver gets their quarterback and draft capital, which they are looking for. New England here at 23, and I had hinted at this earlier. They still need wide receivers, and A.D. Mitchell is sitting right there. A.D. Mitchell is a stud, and I think a lot of people will also look at that and go, wow, so you had pick 3, you traded back when you had Marvin Harrison Jr., you had Malik Neighbors, and you had Rome Odunze even at your, available. You really want to trade back and then take A.D. Mitchell. And I think that is just a little bit too, I don't want to say disrespectful, but people need to start putting some respect on A.D. Mitchell's name. The dude is an absolute stud. He's got size and speed. He's got route running. He's a very, very athletically gifted wide receiver that I think could thrive in New England. Now you then have to answer the question of who's going to be the quarterback, but Jerron Mayo himself at the annual coaches meeting came out and said, we are okay if Jacoby Brissett is our guy for this year. So if they feel content with their quarterback situation, A.D. Mitchell can really be a building piece in that offense for the upcoming years. Dallas here at 24, and this is going to be my last trade of this mock draft. This is really a very simple trade. It's Tampa coming up to pick 24, sending a 4th round pick 125 over to Dallas. And Tampa is going to take Cooper DeJean. The reason why Tampa would or could make this trade is because they see Green Bay at 25 and they look at Green Bay's defense and they say they would absolutely take a Cooper DeJean in their defense who can play on the outside, who can play, as in the safety role as well. But Tampa also has that kind of need, but more so at corner. So you got to get ahead of Green Bay to go get really the last corner before a teardrop in terms of quality and ceiling and stuff like that. Cooper DeJean, and again, the trade is just a 4th to go up 2 spots. Like, I think that makes too much sense for Tampa. Just go get the guy. Go get the guy. You have the need, who is a good talent. Go get the guy. So now Green Bay at 25, after getting sniped on Cooper DeJean, they will go offensive line. They will go with J.C. Latham. I think Johnny Newton also makes a ton of sense. I will talk about Johnny Newton in just a second. But J.C. Latham, you can put him in at right tackle right now. You move Zach Tom then to right guard. I think that offensive line then is really set then for at least the next couple of years. Yes, you moved off of David Bakhtiari, but you have Rasheed Walker, who did play pretty well last year at left tackle for them. You still have Elgin Jenkins. Sorry, that you know who I'm talking about. Josh Myers at center. Then you have Zach Tom at right guard, and then J.C. Latham at right tackle. That offensive line is really set then for the next couple of years. So that's going to help in the development of Jordan Love and really, take the offense to another level. Dallas here at 26, again, after training back with Tampa. This is Graham Barton. Graham Barton is an offensive guard. You could play him at center if you really wanted to, but I think he's more suited for guard. Dallas needs some help on the offensive line. They lost Tyler Biotish. They lost Tyron Smith, and it seems like they're going to move Tyler Smith from left guard to left tackle. So currently their left guard, their starting left guard on most depth charts is TJ Bass, and their starting center is a guy named Brock Hoffman. They need to go get one of these top interior linemen. Barton's the pick there, immediate day one starter at left guard. And that it continues to just help that offensive line after losing some pretty key pieces this offseason. Arizona here at 27, excuse me. This is Johnny Newton. They need some help on the defensive line. Their current starting defensive line is Bilo Nichols, Kyrus Tonga, and Justin Jones. They need a Johnny Newton on that defensive line very, very badly. Now, do I think Johnny Newton is still here at pick 27 on the actual day of the draft? Probably not, because I think when you look at the talent, you go, wow, that is a top 20 talent in this draft class. The only reason why he could fall a little bit in the draft is just because of his medicals, because he is coming back from a foot injury. So there is a world where he could fall. Do I think so? Maybe not. But in this scenario, he does, just because teams are not so okay with his medical. Arizona takes a chance because they say, what's the worst that can happen? Like, if it either pays off or it doesn't. And they need a guy like Johnny Newton where the upside is so much higher, or, if he pans out. Arizona is then, they are the new kids on the block, because they've got the new toy on the defensive line that can really do everything in run stopping and pass rushing and disrupting blocks, all that kind of stuff. So Arizona takes Johnny Newton there at 27. And pick 28 then for Buffalo. This is Nate Wiggins, a corner out of Clemson, really the Trey White replacement. So then you're starting corners, Rasul Douglas, Taron Johnson, and now Nate Wiggins. I think that one makes the most sense. And when you look at like who's available on the board, you go, well, Tyler Newman maybe, because they lost Jordan Poyer, Kool-Aid McKinstry, another corner, but Nate Wiggins is a little bit better than Kool-Aid McKinstry, or is at least ranked higher than Kool-Aid McKinstry for me. And then you start going down the board and you're like, well, could they go wide receiver? And it's like, well, your wide receiver options are Troy Franklin, who, field stretcher, but not exactly what they are needing in terms of play style and athlete. Ladd McConkey, but you have Khalil Shakir. You just went out and signed Curtis Samuel. I think Ladd McConkey is a little too similar to those guys. So your options are really limited at wide receiver. I think a lot of people could then also look at like Keon Coleman or Xavier Legette as just two bigger body wide receivers that can win downfield at the catch point. And while I get that, I don't know if that I would want to use my 28th pick on one of those guys. So Nate Wiggins, Trey White replacement, building up the secondary for Buffalo. Detroit here at 29. This one kind of in the same vein, really, as I'm going to refresh my memory. Laiatu Latu to the Rams. Jackson Powers Johnson to Oregon. Really the picks that are like, it's going to be tough for me to get off of them, because in my mind, the pairing, the matching is just a match made in heaven. I mean, Chop Robinson, who is one of the most athletic and quickest and fast edge rushers in a long time, as a compliment to a guy like Aiden Hutchinson. I mean, come on. And Chop Robinson is not even a finished product yet. He is relatively raw as a pass rusher. So if you can develop him a little bit, you've got bookend edge rushers. Chop Robinson, Aiden Hutchinson coming off the edge. Like that's a lethal duo. So Chop Robinson to Detroit at 29, probably one of my, again, it's another pick that I'm going to have a tough time getting off of, because I'm just like, they want to play fast. Chop Robinson is the definition of that. Baltimore here at 30. I think they could go Zach Fisher here, or sorry, not Zach Fisher, Zach Frazier. They did lose Kevin Zeitler in free agency. They did lose John Simpson in free agency. So their guards are still we don't know what the status of their guards are going to be at the beginning of the year, but they still had Tyler Linderbaum at center. So Zach Frazier, more center than guard. He can play guard, but I think he's more center than guard. So it's a little bit of it's not a clean fit, you could say. So I'm going to go Tyler Guyton here, right tackle. After they traded Morgan Moses, Tyler Guyton can go right into right tackle. And I think, Guyton is another raw tackle. He's he's like an Amarius Mims, Kingsley Suamataia, guys that are, that aren't complete products just yet, but with the right coaching and development, they could be very, very solid players. And I think Baltimore just, again, is going to continue building up the offensive line because they need to. They've lost 3 key pieces on that offensive line. Getting some replacements and some reinforcements like a Tyler Guyton makes the most sense for them at pick 30. San Francisco here at 31. This is going to be Kool-Aid McKinstry. Getting a guy to play opposite of Charvarius Ward, I think, should be the first priority. You could look offensive line as well, but they've never really invested like high-end draft capital into their offensive line. So maybe do they go wide receiver? Because there is still the rumor of Brandon Ayuk potentially getting traded. At this point, sounds like Brandon Ayuk will still be in town, but again, we're a month away. Anything can change. But at least for right now, again, getting a guy to play opposite of Charvarius Ward, like Kool-Aid McKinstry, makes a ton of sense in my mind. And that leaves Kansas City here with the last pick of the first round. And this is going to be a tackle. This is Jordan Morgan from Arizona. The guy can play left tackle right away. If he doesn't pan out, you can just move him into guard. Trey Smith is going to be coming up here on the last couple year or last year of his deal relatively soon. Joe Thuney is not getting any younger. So Jordan Morgan, give him a try at left tackle. If he sticks and it works out, awesome. You found your left tackle. But if it's not working out, give him a try at guard, and he could very well succeed there as well. So that is Mock Draft 3.0. And a quick recap here on your screen. Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Drake May to Minnesota after trading up with New England, Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors to the Jets, who traded up from number 10. J.J. McCarthy at 6, Joe Alt to the Titans, Dallas Turner to the Falcons at 8, Roma Dunze to the Bears at 9, Talise Fuwaga to the Chargers, who traded back with the Jets, Olu Fashanu to the Patriots, who traded back with Minnesota, Quinyon Mitchell to the Eagles, who traded up with Denver, Troy Fautanu, I picked 13 to the Raiders, Jared Verse 14 to the Saints, Brock Bowers to the Colts. At 15, Jackson Powers Johnson to Seattle at 16. Byron Murphy, the second from Texas, going to Jacksonville at pick 17. Amarius Mims to Cincinnati at pick 18. Leatu Latu to the Rams. At pick 20, Pittsburgh takes Terrion Arnold. Brian Thomas Jr. to the Dolphins at pick 21. Bo Nix to Denver at 22 after trading back with Philly. So Denver gets their quarterback of the future. A.D. Mitchell to New England with pick 23, the pick that they also acquired in the deal with Minnesota. Tampa trades up 2 spots to go get Cooper DeJean in front of Green Bay, who then take J.C. Latham to play a right tackle. Dallas takes Graham Barton to play guard for them at pick 26. Johnny Newton goes at pick 27 to the Arizona Cardinals. Nate Wiggins to the Bills at 28 as the Trey White replacement. Detroit takes speed, and Chop Robinson off the edge. Baltimore goes Tyler Guyton to play right tackle for them in the future at pick 30. Kool-Aid McKinstry to San Francisco at pick 31, and Jordan Morgan to play offensive line at whatever position. They'll figure it out. It's Kansas City at pick 32. Thanks so much for tuning in. Make sure you are subscribed. Give this video a like. Let me know what you thought in the comments down below. What do you want your team to do in the draft? What do you wish I did differently? We still have time before the draft. We can discuss about it in the comments below. So again, let me know your thoughts down there, and we will see you on the next episode of the Fantasy Football Fellas, where we will be discussing mock draft strategies for dynasty startups. You don't want to miss that. So stay tuned. Make sure you're subscribed. Have the notification bell turned on so you don't miss it. So until then, deuces.